Okay, so picture this. 10 strangers invited to a luxurious island, but instead of like champagne and sunshine, they're hit with accusations.
Accusations of in crimes delivered by a mysterious voice. Yeah, it's a truly unsettling premise.
It really is. And today we're going deep into the opening of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None to see just how she sets this.
This atmosphere of suspense and dread from the very first page.
Right, like you're instantly hooked. And so we're on Indian Island off the Devon coast, and our characters start arriving one by one.
And each one of them comes with secrets and a past that they maybe would rather keep hidden.
Absolutely. Okay, so first up, we've got Justice Wargrave, this very serious man, gets an invitation from a Lady Constance Culmington, and
It's full of these rambling stories about her travels, almost whimsical, which seems a little odd considering.
yeah, for a man like Wargrave. And what struck me was his reaction, this sort of detached amusement.
Exactly. It's like he finds it all a bit beneath him, this cynical amusement, even before the accusations start, hints at a man
Who
who.
maybe sees himself above it all, you know?
Exactly. Perhaps even someone who enjoys observing human nature from a distance.
From a very safe distance, maybe. Then we have Vera Claythorne, and she's excited about this new job, a holiday post as a secretary.
But there's this detail about the 12.40 train from Paddington that's mentioned in her letter, a tiny thing, but
But it links her to some of the other guests. It's like Christie's already starting to connect the dots.
it's subtle, but it's there. That shared train journey, it suggests that this gathering isn't random at all.
Oh, it's definitely deliberate. And speaking of deliberate, then there's Philip Lombard, who's not exactly subtle about who he is.
He's very upfront about taking this job from a shady character named Isaac Morris and his reputation, a good man in a tight place.
Precedes him. And even on the train, he's already checking out Vera. There's a mercenary vibe to him right from the start.
Oh, absolutely. He's a pragmatist driven by self-interest, and that way he sizes Vera up on the train, noting her looks, but also that school mistress quality.
It shows he's observant, but maybe a bit cynical about appearances.
Maybe. And then Emily Brent arrives, and she's all prim and proper.
I almost laughed out loud when I read this part. She gets this free holiday invitation, but the signature is illegible.
But she's drawn to the promise of good plain cooking and a nice old-fashioned type of person.
Yeah, she's very specific about what she wants. And that selective memory of past acquaintances, it's like she's rewriting her own history.
She is very much invested in maintaining those social appearances and adhering to a very strict moral code.
Which makes you wonder what secrets she's hiding. And then we have General MacArthur arrives completely confused, doesn't quite know who this Owen is.
Vaguely expecting to see old friends, and even wondering if the military has some interest in the island.
He seems haunted by his past, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely bewildered and preoccupied with his past military connections. There's definitely some unresolved issues there.
And then there's Dr. Armstrong, successful Harley Street physician, but surprisingly weary. You know?
He accepts a large fee from the Owens to discreetly assess a wife's nerves.
And there's this subtle condescension in his thoughts about women's ailments.
You pick up on that too, yeah. His weariness, despite his success, may be a sign of stress or even guilt connected to his practice.
Ooh, interesting. And then Mr. Bloor, oh boy, Mr. Bloor, he's just dripping with deception.
Meticulously preparing to play Mr. Davis from natal South Africa, even studying a travel folder.
I mean, come on. And he's got this memory of Indian Island from his boyhood, very different, less glamorous, and that warning he gets from the old man on the train.
Watch and pray, the day of judgment is at hand.
So chilling. Is like Christie is setting us up for something truly sinister.
Oh, definitely. And that warning to Bloor is pure foreshadowing, hinting at a moral reckoning to come.
It's brilliant. And then they all arrive on the island, and that isolation just amplifies everything.
The shared taxi ride, awkward silences, stolen glances, Vera and Lombard's conversation, Lombard subtly trying to figure out her connection to Mrs. Owen.
The suspicion is already brewing. And then General MacArthur arrives late, adding to this feeling of unease.
And Lombard's thought about being questioned about the war, it speaks volumes.
Right, he's got something to hide, too.
Mm-hmm.
And the island itself, Vera expecting a house by the shore, but instead she sees...
A boldly silhouetted rock, imposing, almost threatening.
The setting itself is mirroring the hidden dangers. And then Anthony Marston makes his grand entrance in his flashy car.
Typical Marston, making sure all eyes are on him.
And Fred Narracott, the boatman, he knows something's off about this group. They're not like the usual guests.
He's never even met Mr. or Mrs. Owen, only dealt with a Mr. Morris, another layer of mystery.
And once they're inside the house, there's that brief moment of normalcy with the butler Rogers, but
Fleeting, right? Then Vera finds that nursery rhyme 10 Little Indian Boys framed in her room,
So innocent on the surface, but
but deeply unsettling. It hints at a predetermined sequence of events, a twisted game.
and then the connections start. Dr. Armstrong recognizes Justice Wargrave remembers his reputation as a hanging judge.
Adding another layer of complexity, past actions, reputations, they're all going to play a part.
It's all coming together. And Emily Brent, she's off in her own little world reading her Bible, muttering about the wicked.
Everyone is watching, judging, forming opinions based on their own perceptions and pasts.
The tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife. And then dinner, it's like a brief respite, good food, good wine.
A fragile sense of normalcy before the storm.
Because then that voice, the chilling, disembodied voice, reciting their crimes.
Listing names, dates, victims, the facade of polite society is stripped away.
And their reactions are fascinating. Rogers drops the coffee tray, his wife faints, guilt, fear, who knows.
Lombard jumps into action, finds the gramophone, the holes in the wall. Rogers just keeps repeating that he was following orders.
It's pathetic. And then the confessions, the denials, each one revealing a little more about who they really are.
Wargrave gives a very legalistic defense of the Seton case, emphasizing the legality but not the moral implications.
Armstrong vaguely remembers a patient named Cleese, but he's clearly uncomfortable.
Avoiding the truth, and Glore admits he's an ex-CID man hired to watch them all.
Talk about a bombshell. The trust is shattered.
Completely. And then there's Lombard calmly admitting to leaving that native African tribe to die.
Framing it as survival, but it's a chilling display of ruthlessness and Marston's indifference to the deaths of those children.
Disturbing, a lack of empathy, lack of responsibility, and General MacArthur's recollection of sending Richmond to his death.
So much guilt and pain in his voice. And Rogers denies everything about Jennifer Brady, but Blore's question about the inheritance lingers.
Miss Brent refuses to accept any blame for Beatrice Taylor's suicide.
Blaming the girl's so-called immorality, it's infuriating. And Vera, she's struggling with the memory of Cyril's drowning.
Her guilt is palpable. And then the realization, UNON, it stands for unknown.
It's so simple yet so terrifying. They're at the mercy of someone they don't even know.
A dangerous homicidal lunatic, as Wargrave puts it.
Trapped accused with nowhere to run. So what are your thoughts? What struck you the most about this opening?
Christie's ability to create this claustrophobic atmosphere is masterful. The imitations, the secrets, the accusations.
It's like a ticking time bomb. And the characters, they're so complex, so flawed.
They're all hiding something, and it makes you question who is truly guilty, who deserves punishment.
And if anyone has the right to take justice into their own hands.
That's the big question, isn't it? And as we go deeper into the story, it's something we'll need to keep in mind.
Absolutely. So we've just scratched the surface here, folks. And Then There Were None is a masterpiece of suspense, and I highly encourage you to
keep reading, unravel the mystery for yourself.
pay close attention to those early interactions, the subtle clues, the hints of darkness.
Because everything matters. Everything is connected.
And if you were on that island, surrounded by those secrets and those accusations, what would you do?
It's a chilling thought, isn't it?
It certainly is. So until next time, happy reading.
And remember, don't trust anyone.